Today is January 31st, 2021, which means that it's the final day of January 2021. It's the final day of the first month of 2021. Already 1 month of 2021 is over, and tomorrow will be the first day of February 2021, the second month of the year. I've got to say, January 2021, this past month has felt really fast and really slow at the same time. There were four major events that took place in the past month, and coincidentally, they all happened on a Wednesday. Actually, there were a few more than four, but the four biggest ones I think all happened on Wednesdays. On January 6th, the first Wednesday, you had the Capitol riots. January 13th, you had Trump's impeachment. On January 20th, we had Biden's inauguration, and on January 27th, we had the whole GameStop stock market situation. All four of those events happened on Wednesdays, January 6th, January 13th, 20th, and 27th. Besides that, we also had the newly elected members of Congress take office. This was on January 3rd, 2021. Most of the new members that got elected back in November, they took office on January 3rd, 2021. And on January 5th, 2021, we had the Georgia Senate runoff elections, which both Democrats won. Both Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, the Democratic challengers, they both won their respective runoff Senate races, which is pretty surprising to a lot of people, me included, because I thought Raphael Warnock would win, but I did not expect John Ossoff to win. Getting to the point of this video, another big thing that happened in 2021 was that the vaccine distribution process really sped up in the past month. Now, this process began in December 2020, the final month of 2020. In the United Kingdom, the first day that the vaccine was given to people was December 8th, I believe. But in the United States, December 14th was the very first day that anybody that wasn't participating in the trial got the vaccine. December 14th was the first day for that. So that means that it's been right around a month and a half since people outside of the vaccine trials have started receiving this vaccine. And for the first, I'd say, almost month, we had a pretty slow rollout to begin with, but in the past couple of weeks, the process really sped up. So I would like to give an update on how that's going now. Like I said, I'm going to try to make these videos. I've said this before, I'm going to make these videos around once a week. One video per week is going to be dedicated to COVID-19 numbers. Another day per week is going to be dedicated to vaccine rollout numbers. And tomorrow I'm actually planning on making a video talking about the future projections for COVID-19 numbers. I think I made a video about this a couple months ago where I talked about what the model predicted for how long it would take to get 300,000 and 400,000 deaths. And considering we're now at 450,000 deaths and we're soon going to reach 500,000 deaths, I think it's a good time to give an update on that. So that's going to be tomorrow's video. First video of February 2021, first video of the month. It's going to be about future COVID-19 projections, and especially since we're talking about the vaccine distribution process now, that will hopefully have a noticeable impact on the COVID-19 numbers in the next few months. So now let's actually get to the video. I went on a side tangent for quite a long time there, but let's talk about COVID-19 vaccine distribution. So throughout the world, almost 100 million vaccines in total have been administered. Over 98.3 million shots have been given in total, and almost a third of those shots were given just in the United States. In total, the United States has administered 31.8 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, these include the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. At this moment in time, those are the only two COVID-19 vaccines that the United States FDA has approved. So until AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson gets approved, it's going to be those two vaccines for a while. Now, the Pfizer vaccine, the minimum age for that is 16 years old. You have to be at least 16 years old to get a shot of Pfizer, but for Moderna, the minimum age is 2 years higher at 18. So nobody below the age of 16 has been able to get a vaccine yet, so that's going to take a few more months because I don't think there were enough people under the age of 16 in either the Pfizer or the Moderna trial, so that's why people under the age of 16 or 18 can't get a shot yet. So, like I said, 98.3 million worldwide doses, 31.8 million of those doses are in the United States. That doesn't necessarily mean 31.8 million people have gotten the vaccine yet, because some people have already gotten 2 doses of the vaccine, and those 2 doses would count as a part of the 31.8 million. So, in reality, the number of people who've gotten at least one shot is slightly less than 31.8 million. But on average, in the past week, we've actually had around 1.35 million shots per day, which is actually a pretty big improvement over compared to how well we were doing in December and early December 2020 and January 2021. So if we look at a state-by-state basis now, I've been using Bloomer.com for these videos. I've been using their vaccine tracker, their vaccine distribution tracker, because it's a really nice website that they've set up. They have several nice graphics to use, but one thing that they recently added to their website was you can now look at the United States and on a state by state basis what percentage of each state or what percentage of the country as a whole has gotten one dose of the vaccine and what percentage has gotten both doses of the vaccine. So throughout the United States in total, like I said, 31.8 million people, 31.8 million shots have been given for the COVID-19 vaccine. And in total, around 7.8% of the United States population has received at least one dose of the vaccine. And most of the people who have received one or two doses, most of them have only received one dose. But out of all the people in the United States, approximately 1.8% of those people have received both doses of the vaccine and are now fully immune. Not fully as in 100% immune, but fully as in as they've received as much as immunity as possible. Like I said, I've said this before, the efficacy rate for these vaccines is not 100%, which means that there's a slight chance that you still get the virus even if you take the vaccine, but the chances are pretty low. Both Pfizer and Moderna in the phase 3 trials, they both had an efficacy rate of over 90%, which means that the vaccines were over 90% effective at stopping people from getting COVID-19. And that's why it's important for as many people as possible to get this vaccine, because the vaccine isn't 100% effective, which means that even if you yourself get the vaccine, there's still a slight chance that you could get the virus, which means that it's important for other people to also get the vaccine so your chance of actually getting the virus are even less. Getting back to the number of shots that have been given per day in the past month and a half, it started out pretty slowly, the vaccine distribution process. At the start, not that many vaccines were being given out per day. On some days, the number of vaccines that were given out per day, number of shots, were only around 250,000. And then by early January, on average, around 500,000 shots were being given per day. But we rarely had any days where over 1 million shots were given. That all changed on January 20th, though. Coincidentally, that was Biden's inauguration day. I don't think Biden's inauguration necessarily has anything to do with there being more shots being given per day, but that's just how it turned out. The fact that in the past 11 days, every day since January 20th, 2021, including that date, every single day, over 1 million shots of the COVID-19 vaccine have been administered in the United States. Before January 20th, there were barely any days where over 1 million shots were given, but after January 20th, we saw a pretty big increase in the number of shots being given, because every day after Biden's inauguration day, January 20th, over 1 million shots were given on all those days up until now. I'm really hoping that that trend continues, because at this rate we can easily reach herd immunity for COVID-19 by the end of 2021. So by fall of 2021 we could definitely reach herd immunity if we keep this rate up, if we keep vaccinating more than 1 million people per day, because there's around 330 million people in the United States. So even if exactly 1 million shots of the vaccine were given per day, that would mean that by the end of 2021, almost everybody in the United States could potentially receive the COVID-19 vaccine. So hopefully that keeps up the 1 million plus shots per day. I'm really hoping that can continue. But let's look at a state by state basis now. Let's look at which states are doing the best in terms of the absolute number of shots given, as well as the percentage of the population in each state that has actually received the vaccine, one or two doses. So in terms of the absolute number of doses administered, the states that have given the most shots are California, Texas, Florida, and New York. But the reason for that is just because those are the states with the most amount of people. California has given around 3.4 million shots, Texas 2.4 million, Florida right around 2 million, and New York 1.9 million. So the four states with the most people are also the four states that have given the most shots. No surprise there, but let's also look at the states that have given the highest percentage of their populations at least one dose of the vaccine. So actually in first place here is American Samoa. That's not really a state, that's a territory of the United States, but 18.1% of the American Samoa population has received at least one dose of the vaccine, but only 2% of the population has received both doses of the vaccine. In second place, also a territory, Northern Marianas, 13.4% of the population in that territory has received one dose of the vaccine at least, but 6.1% of the population received both doses. So in terms of the one dose numbers and the both dose numbers, Northern Mariana is doing well in both those metrics. Now third place is actually a state this time, Alaska, 13% of their population received one dose of the vaccine, but only 3.4% has received both doses. And then fourth place, once again, territory, Guam, 12.7% have received one dose, 4.1% have received both doses. Now, the reason why territories are at the top of this list is mostly because territories have a small number of people, so it's easier to vaccinate a higher percentage of the population in these regions if there's less people to vaccinate. But in fifth place overall, but second place in terms of actual states is West Virginia. 10.8% has received one dose, 3.8% has received both doses. Third place out of all the 50 states in the U.S. in terms of the percentage of the population that has received at least one dose is New Mexico. 9.9% of the population has received one dose at least, and 2.7% of the population has received both doses. Only two states in the entire United States that are actually states have had more than 10% of their population receive at least one dose of the vaccine. That's Alaska and West Virginia. If we look at the two-dose numbers, Northern Mariana is at the top, Guam's in second place, West Virginia third place, Alaska fourth place, North and South Dakota are in fifth and sixth place, respectively. North Dakota has 9.3% of their population receive at least one dose, 3.3% of their population received both doses. South Dakota, 8.6% received one dose, 3.3% received both doses. So the states with less people have done better at vaccinating a higher percentage of their population. Once again, no surprise there. But one thing I'd like to point out now is that the number of doses that have been administered in the United States is actually higher now than the number of people in the United States throughout this entire pandemic who have tested positive for COVID-19. I believe in total throughout the pandemic, the United States has had around 27 million people test positive for COVID-19, but now we're at 31.8 million doses of the vaccine that have been administered to people. So that's good news in that aspect. Now, if we look at the worldwide numbers, 98.3 million doses have been administered, like I said. That's actually slightly less than the number of positive COVID-19 cases there have been throughout this entire pandemic. At this point in time, around 104 million people have tested positive for COVID-19 across the entire planet in the past little more than a year at this point, but at this point we're only at 98.3 million doses administered for the vaccine, so I would say it would take a couple more weeks before the vaccine, or maybe even 1 week or a few days. I really don't know for sure, but pretty soon we're going to have more people across the planet receive at least one dose of this vaccine than the number of people that have tested positive for COVID-19, which is absolutely good news, the fact that more people are getting this vaccine. I've said this many times, every country needs to try to get herd immunity as fast as possible, because even if there's one country that is still doing really badly with COVID-19, that's still a threat to every other country across this planet. It's possible that people in that country go to other countries and spread the virus there. And for two, it's possible that mutations develop in a country doing badly with COVID-19, and those mutations could potentially be resistant to the vaccine. Now, the vaccines actually don't take that long to update for these new mutations. In fact, the Pfizer vaccine is actually pretty effective against the British mutation, the United Kingdom mutation, and is mostly effective against the South Africa mutation they just announced, which I'd say is pretty good news. It could have definitely been a lot worse. It could have definitely been the case that the vaccine was not very effective against either of these mutants, but the vaccine works pretty well against both the UK mutation and the South Africa mutation. So I'd say that's good news, but we should also develop new vaccines, updated vaccines that are better at targeting these mutations, I would say, especially when those mutations start to become the dominant strain across the planet. At this point in time, that's not the case, but that could definitely happen in a few months from now, especially if we don't get the vaccines out fast enough. But I'm hoping that we get the vaccines out to enough people to the point that the new mutations don't have enough opportunity to emerge, because the less people that are not immune to COVID-19, the less chance there is of a new mutation emerging. The more people that have gotten COVID-19, the higher chance there is of a new mutation emerging for COVID-19, because new mutations can only emerge when somebody has gotten COVID-19, meaning if less people have gotten the virus, less opportunities for the virus to mutate. Anyway, that's it for this video. I thought that it would be a good time to give an update on the vaccine distribution numbers, especially considering that my last video on this topic was a week ago, and already just in the past week, we've made pretty good progress in vaccinating new people, both in the United States and across the planet. So tomorrow I'm going to make a video talking about future projections for COVID-19, and I hope you stick around for that video tomorrow.